reserve several hours to go up to the top of Eiffel's Great Tower. When your eyes are quite full and your belly is not, find a boulangerie for pain au chocolat. Or a quick slice of quiche or a cream-filled eclair. If you just can't decide, get them all and then share. Then go hop on a train and head out to Versailles. The most opulent palace will dazzle your eyes. It was Louis XIV who built it as roi, and he made it so grand to say, "L'état, c'est moi." It was also the home of Marie Antoinette, up until Revolution removed her fair tête. When Napoleon ruled, he did not lose his head. He was exiled to Isles when his empire was dead. French history is exciting. They like revolution. Now strikes in the streets have replaced executions. Their passions extend to their cheeses and wines, which are present at tables whenever French dine. From Roquefort and Brie to Bordeaux and Champagne. French wines and cheeses are globally famed. So come into fair France, land of passions galore, flaky pastry to taste and great sights to enjoy. So go now, pack your bag, wish yourself bon voyage, and head off to go visit the land of fromage. And there's a little fromage down here saying bon appetit. Alright, let's read all the little facts about France, starting with the flag. Okay, starting with the name and then the flag. The name France comes from the Latin word Francia, which means land of the Franks. The Franks were a group of Germanic tribes, whose first king, Clovis I, was crowned in 496 CE. Before being named Francia, the region was called Gaul, and the word Gallic is still sometimes used as a synonym for French. Now here's the flag. The French tricolor was made the flag of France in 1794 during the French Revolution, and I'll talk more about the revolution later. Revolutionary fighters wore red and blue ribbons in their hats to represent the colors of Paris. White was added to represent all of France. Here's a map of most of the French empires, excluding the Caribbean islands and the islands in the Pacific. But you can still see French Guiana over there. I guess it doesn't include the Indian Ocean islands either. But there's France, and then this whole chunk of Africa belonged to France. We have Syria and Lebanon, and then Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam, and Madagascar, and Djibouti. And here's where France is located in the world. Let's read the geographical notes. Why is French such a popular language? Many countries that were once French colonies still use French as one of their official languages. Almost all French colonies had become independent nations by 1962. France still retains many overseas departments and territories like French Guiana in South America, French Polynesia in the Pacific, and several islands in the Caribbean like Guadeloupe and Martinique. There's more tourism to France than to any other country. There are many popular destinations, including the Mediterranean, the Alps, and Paris. The French Riviera, or Côte d'Azur, is the easternmost part of France's Mediterranean coast. You can see the Riviera here, and there's the big Alps. For people who are like, I thought Thailand was the most visited country by tourists, here's a stat. Bangkok is the most visited city by tourists. France is the most visited country by tourists. That stat gets like thrown around and gets Egyptian Antiquities, 2 paintings from the 19th century. It says don't try to see it all at once. I think it's technically impossible. I mean, nothing's impossible, but you wouldn't be able to enjoy yourself if you just ran through the whole castle right there. Its most popular attraction is Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa. Its famous glass pyramid entrance was added in 1988. You can see it there. I've been to the Louvre. I almost got kicked out of the Louvre. Well, not really. I made the horrific crime of walking away from the Mona Lisa the wrong way. And this guard just jumped out at me and went, no, and was about to just like grab me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was just trying to backtrack to get to my friends who were further down the hallway. They hadn't made it to the Mona Lisa yet, and I was terrified. And then I think he saw in my eyes how scared I was, and he just kind of he just pointed me toward the right way to go. But loved the Louvre. It was incredible. It was my favorite part of Paris. I also went here. Notre Dame de Paris, or Our Lady of Paris, is a Catholic cathedral and one of Paris's most famous sites. This church, built between 1163 and 1345, is considered one of the best examples of Gothic architecture, with its pointed arches, gargoyles, and flying buttresses. It is the setting of The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. It's about the thing I remember most about Notre Dame is because I was in Paris during a massive heat wave, and this was like the coldest place in all of Paris. It was just naturally nice and cold. So we went to one other church that was also pretty cold, but this was the best. It was nice and relaxing inside. France has been a fashion leader since the reign of Louis XIV, when la mode at the French court influenced fashion all over Europe. Today there are many famous French fashion houses, including Chanel, Dior, Gaultier, Givenchy, Hermès, Louis Vuitton, and Yves Saint Laurent. The annual Paris Fashion Week features designers from all around the globe. There are an incredible number of famous French artists, including Cézanne, Monet, Manet, Renoir, Degas, Rodin, and Matisse. Art is important in France, and the nation has been a center for many artistic movements and home to many artists from other countries, including Picasso, Van Gogh, and Chagall. It's beautiful. Renoir, he loved painting women. And there's Rodin's The Thinker. There's some more about the paintings. Monet, Cézanne, Renoir, and Degas were all Impressionists. Impressionism was an artistic movement that emerged in Paris in the late 19th century. It was the first modern artistic movement that shifted away from absolute realism to try and capture the light and feel of an instant. Many Impressionist works can be found at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris. You can see Monet's very famous water lilies painted there. The Seine River runs through the center of Paris, dividing the city into the left bank, or rive gauche, and right bank, or rive droit. The left bank is the southern side of the river, which used to be associated with artists, writers, and philosophers living in Paris in the early 20th century. There's the Seine. The Arc de Triomphe, or Arch of Triumph, was commissioned by Napoleon Bonaparte in 1806 to commemorate victories of the French military. It is the largest triumphal arch in the world. I didn't know that, but that makes sense. Here's another very, very famous landmark. The Eiffel Tower was originally an entrance gateway for the 1889 World's Fair. Built by a company owned by engineer Gustave Eiffel, it was made of wrought iron plates riveted together into a lattice. The tower was the tallest building in the world for some time, many in the French public, but it eventually became the beloved symbol of Paris that it is today. Eiffel Tower. A boulangerie is a bakery that sells baguettes, as well as other French breads and pastries. Pain au chocolat is like a flaky croissant filled with dark chocolate. A quiche is a savory pie made with eggs and cream. Boulangeries and patisseries, which mainly serve pastries, are found all over Paris and in every French city. Is it bad of me that, like, I don't really like croissants, I don't really like flaky bread? Baguettes, though, I could just, like, eat this for lunch. It's so good. Crunchy on the outside and light and chewy on the inside. Baguettes are very important to the French and make up a significant part of their diet. As baguettes do not keep well, stopping by a boulangerie to pick up fresh baguettes is a part of daily life for most French families. One of the largest palaces in the world, the Palace of Versailles, has 2,300 rooms, 67 staircases, 6,000 paintings, and 2,000 sculptures. King Louis XIV built Versailles to glorify his power and to keep all the French nobility with him at court. He moved the French court from the Louvre Palace to Versailles in 1682 to better control the French nobility, making himself an absolute ruler of France. King Louis is credited with saying "L'État c'est moi," which means "I am the government," as no one held any power but himself. There's Louis XIV there. There's the castle, the big fountains there, the beautiful, beautiful gardens, and probably the most famous room here, the Hall of Mirrors. Here's probably the most famous resident of Versailles. Marie Antoinette was the French queen who famously lost her head in 1793 during the French Revolution. Marie was the wife of King Louis XVI, who was also guillotined. Peasants who were starving due to bad harvests believed that the queen was indifferent to their suffering while she was living richly at Versailles. Later, writers falsely accused her of remarking, "Let them eat cake," when told that poor people had no bread to eat. Yeah, she did not say that. That was a lie. The guillotine was proposed by Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotine as a humane method of capital punishment. As gruesome as it looks, it delivers a quick death with less suffering than the previously common methods of execution. The guillotine was first used during the French Revolution, and it was the only method of execution in France until they abolished the death penalty in 1981. There's that guillotine. The French Revolution was a movement toward democracy in France and away from the inequality of a nation ruled by a king and the nobility. It established France's first republic and embraced the modern idea that all people are equal under the law and that government should represent the will of the people. The motto of the French Revolution was Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, or liberty, equality, brotherhood. France has actually had several revolutions, including one in 1830 that is depicted above in the painting Liberty Leading the People by Eugène Delacroix. Each new revolution in France formed a new republic. France is currently governed by the Fifth Republic, which was formed in 1958. The Fifth Republic strengthened the French presidency, since before they were governed by a frequently changing parliament and prime minister. French people are still willing to take to the streets to demand that their rights and freedoms are respected. And if their government is no longer working for them, they are unafraid of another government revolution. If they decide to change their constitution again, it'll create the Sixth Republic. And there's some pictures of French strikes here. It's still very common to have protests and strikes in France. Napoleon Bonaparte became the leader of France late in the French Revolution and then Emperor of France. He is known as where he died 5 years later. Anyway, here's some cheese. French cheeses are famous the world over, and each region of France produces their own cheese. There are about 400 different types. Brie, Camembert, Roquefort, and Cantal, never heard of them, are some of the most famous French cheeses in the United States. Cheese is commonly eaten after the main course in France. Brie is another thing. I could just eat that straight, like for lunch. Like I would just eat a whole block of brie easily. I love brie. Although it's better with crackers or bread, you know. But I could totally just eat a whole thing of brie. France is one of the world's largest producers of wine. Just as each region of France produces its own kind of cheese, there are many regions that produce their own types of wine. Many wines have been named for the region or city that produces them, such as Champagne, Bordeaux, and Burgundy. There are also many varieties of wine grapes that originate in France, such as Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, and Pinot Noir. Similar sparkling wines are not allowed to use the name Champagne unless they are from that region. Escargot is a dish of cooked snails that is a delicacy in France. Escargot means snail in French, and it is one of the more exotic appetizers. Escargot is frequently served in a rich garlic butter sauce. Escargot's not bad, you guys. It's chewy, it's good. I really like shellfish anyway, so I think that's why I was like, oh, it's not bad. I really love shellfish, so it's almost like a shellfish. France is divided into 27 administrative divisions. The 21 above and Corsica make up Metropolitan France. The 5 overseas are the Atlantic islands of Guadeloupe and Martinique, the Mediterranean islands of Réunion and Mayotte, and French Guiana in South America. In a couple weeks, this has changed. We're gonna go to Auvergne-Rhône Alps on my channel. I'm excited to talk about France some more. France is one of the world's top producers of lavender, and sweet-smelling fields of lavender are a common sight in the south of France. France is also a world center for perfume making, and the word perfume comes from French. It comes from parfum. I love lavender. Who doesn't, though? Mont Saint-Michel is a rocky island located off the coast of Normandy, home to a hilltop monastery since 966 CE. It has become a popular tourist attraction for centuries. In medieval times, pilgrims reached Mont Saint-Michel by walking over a sandy path revealed at low tide. But when the tide comes in, it does so at a speed nearly impossible to outrun. So today, a dry causeway leads safely to the island. They don't want you to drown. Off the English Channel, the cliffs of Normandy are famous in the United States because that was where Allied British, Canadian, and American forces landed in 1944 on D-Day. D-Day was the invasion of France to remove Nazi Germany forces, which had occupied the country since 1940. D-Day is the largest amphibious, which means water-to-land, assault ever attempted. It was the turning point of World War II, and the Germans surrendered 11 months later. The 80th anniversary of D-Day is coming up, and I'm going to have a special video for that, so look forward to that video too. Now, normally I ignore the box of language because I never want to embarrass myself, but I actually know enough French to be able to say bonjour, which means good day. It's like the basic hello, or you could just say salut, which means hi, or if it means like see you later, bye. Ça va means how are you, and ça va or ça va bien means I'm fine. S'il vous plaît is the fancy way of saying please. Merci beaucoup means thank you very much. Je t'aime is a nice little way to say I love you. J'aime le fromage means I love cheese. Moi aussi means me too. J'aime le fromage, moi aussi. Quel dommage means that sucks. nice trip. Over here it tells you to look up some things like Edith Piaf, listen to some Debussy,